What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Titan Season 1, Episode 3, titled Origins. So something that I've noticed for the first 3 episodes of the show, as well as the 4th, is that each episode will focus and has focused around one member of the Titans. The first episode was mainly focused around Raven. Second episode was also mainly focused around Robin, as well as Hawk and Dove, but it was also very much focused around Robin. Third episode here is Starfire, and the 4th episode is titled Doom Patrol, and that will not only obviously introduce the Doom Patrol, but also be very focused on Beast Boy, because he is a member of the Doom Patrol, at least in the comics and on the show, and they're probably definitely going to adapt that to this show. But this episode, episode 3, is focused around Starfire, and that's something that I was kind of worried about in this episode. First of all, I did expect Beast Boy to appear a little more. He didn't, which I understand, because the next episode obviously will be very focused around him, but he has given really the short end of the stick in the first 3 episodes of this show. But for Starfire in this episode, I was worried, because as of this point, as of the 2nd episode, she was not a very interesting character. Everything we knew about her was kind of boring and not very interesting. So there was one thing about Starfire that I really did not like in this episode, or also it was kind of in the first episode where she killed Konstantin Kovar, which is fine because she killed a criminal, but then she actually laughed at it, making her feel like kind of a psychopath. Something similar, not exactly the same, but something similar happened in this episode where she didn't kill anybody. Well, she killed that guy, the android, which isn't really a death, but she actually did beat up these police officers, which just made me feel so weird, because I'm supposed to be rooting for this character, but then she's beating up these police officers that did absolutely nothing. And then the way that they edited the scene, it made it feel like she went out of her way to deliberately beat up these police officers, and I don't really understand why. For the first one, she could have just punched him and then flown away if she even has the power of flight, which at this point we haven't seen it yet. But I mean, she could have just done that instead of just punching him, repeatedly punching him, then throwing him off the stairwell, and then waiting for the other police officers to turn around, even though those guys, and she could have just left before those guys even saw her. And then she deliberately goes out of her way to beat up these police officers. She didn't kill them, which one of them kind of looked like she did, but they never actually mentioned that one of the police officers is dead, but he looks very injured from falling down the stairs and being beat up by this alien girl in Starfire. And I really didn't like this, because I'm supposed to be rooting for this character, but then she's going out of her way to beat up police officers for absolutely no reason. And that's a big part about why I didn't like her in the beginning of this episode. It's a big problem with the show in general, where they just are too brutal at sometimes. Other things I didn't like about her is the way she's dressed. Now, she will get a new costume this season, but for right now, it just looks so stupid. But I will say, other than that, kind of an interesting character. Her investigation about Raven from before she lost her memory is actually very interesting. I'm actually very interested in her relearning her alien roots like she did in this episode. She read the Tamarinian language from some notes that she wrote down from before. That's actually kind of interesting. I'm not going to lie, for her to relearn those alien Tamarinian roots. I also did kind of expect to not really like the amnesia storyline they're doing with her, and honestly, I still kind of do think that they shouldn't have done it. Like her storyline in the comics of being from Tamaran, or really from the show, which the show did a lot of things that better than the comics in a lot of regards, in a lot of respects, and one of those things was Starfire's like learning about everything on Earth and everything that's different between Tamaran and Earth, and I really like that. I think they could have done that here on the show. I get that they're trying to do something different, and that's fine and all, and I also do think it is kind of interesting for her to relearn her Tamaranian ways, but it's also a little weird why they chose to do the amnesia plot. So getting past Starfire for the rest of the review, because I just wanted to talk about what I thought about her in this episode. By getting to the actual episode, I thought the first 30 minutes not really interesting, or at least the first couple minutes might have been pretty interesting, where Starfire actually gets Raven from the nuclear family and kills the dad, or destroys the dad, because he's actually an android. But after that, after she gets Raven and they leave to this place, to this church, those like 25 to 30 minutes is not very interesting. It's pretty boring. Not much happens. I will say the last 10 to 20 minutes are very interesting and a lot happens, but for those 20 to 25 minutes in the middle are pretty boring, and that's not a huge problem for this episode, because I was still interested in what was going on, because I felt like something was being built up to in the end. Also, they had these little things in the middle, like all four Titans being in the same room for the first time, or Dick actually meeting Starfire, or Beast Boy meeting Raven for the first time. Those things were interesting. It's just the actual storyline of the middle 25 minutes was very boring, or maybe not very boring, but definitely a little bit boring. The last 10 minutes of the episode were all about Rachel becoming Raven and really embracing that dark side of her and the Trigon side of her. Also, Trigon was hinted at a lot in this episode, and I really liked that. I really liked how they were building up Trigon as this character and this villain that's probably going maybe not appear in this season. I feel like that will be very expensive, because if they do Trigon and he doesn't look like Trigon, he looks like just a regular person, which they have done in CW shows in the past, like on Smallville and a little bit in the Arrowverse, not much, then that will probably be very disappointing. I think they should probably push off Trigon to a later season. Also, for the Titans to face off Trigon as their first big villain, you can only go down from there, so I really wouldn't do that. I think this season's main villain is probably Brother Blood, and then after that, in a future season, they could definitely do Trigon. But I do like how in this episode it really built up Rachel's parenthood in Trigon, and then Rachel becoming Raven. Everything happening after the point where she got drugged and then locked up in that place was very interesting. Like the old connection between that and the investigation that Starfire was doing before she lost her memory. I liked that a lot. It was really intense. And then Rachel actually becoming Raven, also really, really intense. I liked everything about the last 20 minutes of the episode. I actually really, really liked it. I just wish the first 30 minutes were as interesting. Again, it's not a huge problem for the episode because the last 20 minutes were really, really good. But it's definitely still something. Although I will say, like I said, last 20 minutes were great. I loved basically everything about it, including the interactions between Dick and Corey. I thought those were pretty great near the end. Also, I think there was maybe a Batman and Robin reference when Dick says that he stole my car. I liked the car. There was a scene in Batman and Robin where Dick's, aka Nightwing at that point, or Robin at that point in the movie, says, "I want a car, chicks dig the car." I think that might have been a reference to that scene in Batman and Robin, which obviously not a very good scene in that movie, but I do like the reference. If it is a reference, let me know in the comments down below if you think that scene was a reference to the scene in Batman and Robin. So the title of the episode is Origins, which did manifest into a series of flashbacks in this episode about Dick Grayson's origins, although I'll say this was a little disappointing. For the episode to be titled Origins, I would have hoped to have, maybe see the origins of all four characters. I think that's just a great idea for an episode. There's 10 minutes of Robin's origin story, Starfire's origin story for 10 minutes, Beast Boy and Raven also 10 minutes each. Instead, in this episode, there was a little more nuance. That's definitely true, where Starfire learned a little bit more about her origin. We were told more about Raven's origin, and then we were also shown Dick Grayson's origin, which was great. I did like how they did that, but it also would have been pretty cool to see just the real actual origins and to be shown the origins of these four characters. At this point, I mean, I already know their origin stories, but it would have been cool to see on the actual show. That being said, there was something cool about how they went about it in this episode with a little bit more nuance. We also didn't see the origin of Beast Boy at all, although like I said, they're probably saving that for the next episode. Also, Robin's origin story was definitely not focused on him becoming Robin, more focused about him really being adopted by Bruce Wayne and really wanting to kill his parents and everything that's going on with him in the present day with him killing people, which a lot of people in the comment section are saying that he didn't actually kill people. There will be a link in the description below to an IGN video where all the castmates on Titans say that the Titans are constantly killing people. Like I was saying, I am torn about how they went about the title in this episode. On one hand, I would have loved to see the actual origin stories of these four characters, and then on one hand, I do like the nuance they went about in this episode, and I am very interested to learn more about their respective origin stories in the future of this show and this season. In conclusion, this episode definitely had some things about it that I didn't really like. Specifically, there was a whole 30 minutes that were kind of boring and Starfire killing that police officer. But other than that, I thought the episode was great. The first 5 minutes were pretty great. The last 20 minutes were very good. A lot of intense moments and a lot of intense things, or a lot of great things building up for the future of this season. And for now, I think this episode is not the best episode of the season so far, but not the worst either I'll give the episode an 8.6 out of 10, but let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.